The Minnesota Vikings have made a major trade, going out and giving JJ McCarthy the help they need by going and acquiring Vikings legend Adam Thielen. We're going to be breaking down this trade, going over what this means for the Minnesota Vikings going over this season, as well as the reaction among fans here at the end of this video. We're going to be kind of touching on everything here today. Before we do jump into this phenomenal news, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. If you're looking for all of your Minnesota Vikings news, as we now have a legend starting week 1. We still have a lot of news to cover, and we won't miss it here. You won't miss it here, so be sure to hit that sub button. I also wanted to point out we're just about to hit 2K. Your support's been incredible, and if you haven't hit that sub button, be sure to do so. But ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight into this. Honestly, we're on cloud 9 right now. The emotions are high. The emotions are good. We're feeling good with Adam Thielen coming back to the Vikings after what seemed like this trade was dead in the water. Adam Schefter tweeted this out. Homecoming, the Panthers and Vikings are finalizing a trade for wide receiver Adam Thielen to return to Minnesota. The trade, Vikings get Thielen, a conditional 7th, and a 5th. The Panthers get a 5th rounder and a 4th rounder. And, of course, we don't need to point out the bottom. Thielen, from 2013 to 2022, was our guy. Of course, he's been a homegrown talent, UDFA, played here for just under a decade and is, among the top of all Vikings receivers in, accolades and stats going into his, return to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I first wanted to go out here and talk about the trade because there's been a bit of reaction going about this saying, hey, this is a bit of a steep trade. And it is, there's no doubt that a 4th and a 5th are a little bit steep, but this just goes to show why the Vikings have made all these little tiny moves across the past few days and trying to garner some picks in return. They knew that they were going to have to give up some picks, and my guess was they knew what the Panthers were asking for from, of course, this Vikings team, going to try and get Adam Thielen. They knew they wanted him. They were going to try and get what they can, and they probably said, hey, yeah, we want some mid-round picks, and we're going to want a little bit more than you're willing to give. So the Vikings said, hey, give us a couple days. We'll go out here, make a few trades, we'll get these picks and bring them back to you so we're both in good shape. And obviously, this trade now results in the Vikings getting back a 5th-round pick and also acquiring a conditional 7th. And I apologize, I don't know what the conditions are at this very moment, but regardless, you're getting another pick, you're not losing anything, you're getting Adam Thielen, and the importance behind this trade is astronomical, which genuinely makes this trade look like an absolute steal when it comes down to it. Now, going into it as well, I wanted to pull up this before we kind of dive into what this means for JJ McCarthy going forward and heading in to his first season as a Viking starter. And PFF tweeted this out. And I feel like this is something that I just wanted to pull up. I think a lot of you guys know, but just putting it out here as well. In his 9 years with the Vikings, you see some phenomenal stats from Adam Thielen during his career. And 55 touchdowns, 338 first downs, 6,600 receiving yards. He's been a phenomenal player, and there's been no doubt about that. He's never been the one. That's one thing as well. Or I shouldn't say never. He's rarely been the one for this team. So coming into this role, especially now where it's a little bit reduced compared to his first tenure with the Vikings, but it is absolutely a role that he will thrive in, and something that, especially after being with the Panthers the past couple of years where he's assumed kind of a 1B, 2A type of role, he's going to be here playing the same game with a rookie quarterback who, like I said, we're going to jump into now in a moment of what's been going on between them. He's fitting into a perfect role here, and especially when you're jumping at the depth chart, taking a look at where things stand. Right now, Adam Thielen, my guess will be a wide receiver 2 heading into the first game of the season, Monday Night Football versus the Bears. But Justin Jefferson, having that hamstring injury, questionable. Jalen Nailor, the hand injury, questionable. Jordan Addison suspended for the first 3 games. You needed a receiver other than Ty Felton, other than, Jalen Nailor, if he were to play in those games, to join in this roster. And, of course, that was one thing that this Vikings team was known to have lacking, to have a hole in heading into, the season in a couple days. So getting Adam Thielen again, putting him in wide receiver 3, a little bit less of a role for the, the remainder of the season, but nonetheless, a much more important one than what you would get from Jalen Nailor. And I think that the Vikings are obviously going to continue to use Jalen Nailor. They're going to continue to use Ty Felton. They've made this wide receiver core, when healthy, when non-suspended, back up to a top receiving core in the NFL. And you can see where injuries occurred, that this roster, this wide receiver group would drop down in the rankings quite significantly, especially if Justin Jefferson were to be out. But now looking at a fully healthy with Adam Thielen acquired by this team, now Adam Thielen back on this Vikings team, and even with what he's done over the past few seasons with the Panthers, it makes a lot of sense, and it's actually the perfect addition compared to, just about everybody we've been talking about. The price is right, the trade is right, everything makes sense. Now, especially for JJ McCarthy as well, and this was tweeted out by Adam Schefter. JJ McCarthy and Adam Thielen have worked together in the past couple of off seasons, and now they're teammates in Minnesota. So, looking at this immediately, obviously, this is something I'm sure a lot of people didn't know. I, for one, did not really, I've seen it, but I haven't remembered it. But going into this now, it makes a lot more sense why Adam Thielen was their guy. And, they didn't really settle for anything else. Having Adam Thielen work out with the young Minnesota quarterback, knowing that Minnesota was likely going to try and reacquire him some point, wanted to at least. And we've spoken about him loving Minnesota, being from there, of course, always having a warm place in his heart. He wants JJ McCarthy to be a good quarterback. And that goes to show as well, even when he was on the Panthers. So he's still in a place for Minnesota in his heart. Of course, he was from here, but also what they did for him in his NFL career. And now seeing Adam Thielen giving JJ McCarthy not just another comfortable receiver, but a familiar receiver for multiple years now. That's not something he had really necessarily with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor. Yeah, he's had them for, about a season now, going especially with he was the preseason last year, training camp last year. This year so far, that's about it though. He wasn't doing much throwing here during the season last year, especially when he was on, of course, multiple operations, sitting down, resting up. That was the big thing for him. So, but now having a comfortable receiver that he's familiar with in a game scenario, not, major game scenario, but given in some routes, given some plays, this is going to be, I would say, a very sneaky good option for the Vikings to at least start the season with Adam Thielen, giving JJ McCarthy that safety blanket, I guess we could say is a good way of putting it, for the beginning of his, regular season tenure with the Vikings. Now, on top of this as well, I wanted to pull up a tweet from someone who replied to one of those tweets, I believe it was from Adam Schefter in the original announcement, going over something that I really said in the last video and kind of going over why this is such an important thing. And, of course, JV Swaps here saying this. The Vikings legend, status aside, Adam Thielen is going to be a really important veteran for JJ McCarthy. And that's what I mentioned as well. You have a guy like Adam Thielen who's had several quarterbacks over his Vikings tenure, over his short Panthers tenure as well. He knows the game. He knows a lot of different styles of quarterbacks. And even going off just a regular depth chart here from the Vikings and taking a look at really who's in it, you really only have Aaron Jones and Carson Wentz as your legit veterans, multiple years. Justin Jefferson's getting there, but even then, I still consider him so young. Not yet there where he's had multiple different quarterbacks from different situations. He has had multiple quarterbacks. Obviously not the right choice, that we wanted to see as Vikings fans, but going and seeing this now put into the kind of this realm, you're getting another guy, JJ McCarthy. Non-quarterbacks, but someone who's very well in tune with the situation. So, with the legend status aside, Adam Thielen is back, and you don't know how excited I am. I have his jersey. It's up on my wall, and I cannot wait to wear that week one. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of news to cover. You won't want to miss it. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button. If you're happy to see Adam Thielen back with this team, be sure to hit the sub button too. Let us know. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.